All right, next story that we found. Actually, originally got it off of Twitter, and I can't believe as soon as I read the title, I laughed and I went, really? This is from the Independent UK organization, publication, however you want to word that. It's all digital nowadays. So, teenage girl arrested during far-right yellow vest protests in London. And I just, one of these days, the UK is just going to make the Ministry of Propaganda. Like, it has to be, because...
What was it? Or wasn't it the
Ministry of Truth?
Ministry of Truth, yeah.
Because one, this isn't, they are protesting in yellow vests, but this doesn't have any direct ties to going on with the goings on in Paris right now. Not any clear like organizational ties, because it's not quite for the exact same reasons. What we're seeing is mass amounts of economic unrest in Paris, which it's similar things are going to start happening in the UK eventually too, and it's still government unrest in London, but not for the exact same reasons. So we'll get into the meat of the article here. First off, I love that a 13-year-old girl has been arrested on suspicion of assaulting a police officer during a far-right yellow vest protest that blocked major roads in London.
Boy!
A 13-year-old girl is beating up your police officers. You're going to throw her in jail.
Just kidding. I could just imagine just kicking two shins. It's like, ow, stop that, please. Why?
Like how big was she?
Right, yeah. And I'm like, maybe, like, I'm trying to imagine this, right?
If it's something like she actually threw a giant rock at the cop's head or something like that, then yes, but I don't know if they get into the exact. We'll go through it here. The Metropolitan Police said 3 men were also detained for public order offenses during the demonstration. Spokesperson said the teenage girl was released under investigation as the demonstration continued on Saturday afternoon.
The fact that she told someone something horrible while she was hunting for Pokemon or some shit. Like,
all I have to say on this is when you feel a rock hit your bulletproof vest, quick saving intensifies.
Right.
I'm just waiting for that shit to start happening.
When you see the 13-year-old girl pause the game and save, and then draw her sword.
Right, yeah.
I was meaning the soldiers doing that.
I kind of want her to be out there with a longbow as a 13-year-old girl, to be honest. That would be hilarious. It was one of several
IRL.
It was one of several protests held in British cities by UK yellow vests who have appropriated the high visibility jackets worn in demonstrations that turned violent in France. No, not exactly. And we'll get into the article too, but that's a little bit of a false dichotomy there. Supporters called for a no-deal Brexit and shouted that the Prime Minister was a traitor, while demonstrating over other causes and conspiracy theories popular among the extreme right.
Conspiracy theories.
Police said around 40 protesters also rallied in Manchester, where some yellow vests... Oh, what happened in Manchester, I wonder? Where some yellow vests were dubbed with English Defence League slogans and no surrender.
They dabbed on them.
Dab.
No arrests were made during the march, which was temporarily contained outside a branch of Greg's. Yeah, it's the sausage rolls, man. They shouldn't have done the vegan sausage rolls. That's what this all boils down to.
Oh, that makes sense.
In London, in London, a smoke bomb was set off on Downing Street before dozens of protesters ran up Whitehall and clashed with police officers. They got to be careful screwing with Downing Street, though. It's always iffy whenever they start throwing things at Downing Street, because it's like that's almost like people actually throwing rocks at the White House and hitting it.
And unlike the White House in the U.S., if I remember correctly, Downing Street is just right there off the public street, right?
You can't quite just walk up there willy nilly. There's security that's going to stop you because there's other politicians that live like right next to it. It's a highfalutin area and it's under security guard. But you are technically right that it does have street access to it. There's no giant green lawn that you have to cross behind a fence.
Where the Secret Service is just patrolling nonstop, and if anyone
ready to yeet you,
if anyone sneezes wrong, you've got 30 agents on you with guns drawn, saying "Get down, get down."
if you try to walk up to Downing Street, I'm pretty sure the MI5's watching you in the process, and they're either going to stop you when you get close, or at least question you while you're there. Like I'm actually
you got a license for breathing here, mate.
Well, think about it the same way you try to get into the White House. Like there's going to be checks in place. Like you don't just get to go on the tour. They got to make sure, Organizer James Goddard, who fundraises his activities online, the scandal, filmed himself shouting, "If they want a war, we'll give them a war. Let's give them a fucking war," in a live stream posted on Facebook. Demonstrators wearing high-vis jackets chanted slogans including Brexit Now, called Theresa May treasonous while insulting London Mayor Sadiq Khan and police officers. The group blocked Westminster Bridge, one of several bridges blockaded by the same yellow vest demonstrators last month, before moving through parts of central London. At one point, they stopped traffic. Gosh, the scandal. In Parliament Square, after joining up with a protest against the imprisonment of separatist leaders in Cameroon. The yellow vests later set fire to an EU flag as people shouted spit on it and tried to block Blackfriars Bridge.
Spit on it, my brothers!
As darkness fell, they were still marching around roads in central London chanting, "We want Brexit." Now, how is it far right to insist upon democracy being carried out? I still don't understand.
Because how dare you not do what the EU wants? But here's a big thing. Frankly, I'd be surprised if this happens. I highly doubt it's going to, though. In Paris, we had actually a lot of police officers stepping down and taking their hats off in solidarity with the protesters. If that happens here, that's going to be a major boon, and that's going to show people are tired of what's going on. But I would not be surprised if they never do, because here's the thing. Most of the good police officers have already left. The police officers now are just ideological power grabbers. It's kind of sad, really. Ministry of Truth is probably going to happen.
So we're actually going to get into a little bit of the truth behind the protests here that they accidentally left in. As officers tried to move protesters out of a road near... These are all focused on the road. Yeah, they have the high-vis vests. Yeah, that's matching Paris, but it's an urbanized center. It's all roads. They refused to comply, and scuffles broke out. That's a protest. Yellow vest demonstrators included family members of 3 boys killed by a drink driver in London last year.
Oh, boy.
Let's not blame them for not knowing how to speak the language they claim to invent, who have been running a campaign to charge the culprit with murder. The man was jailed for death by dangerous driving. Yeah, they wanted him charged for murder. If you don't have to click that link. I don't want to say I already did, but it was an Indian man who basically got really smashed up and ran into a bus station where 3 young boys were in there. And he not only got off with a lighter sentence than he should have, as somebody whose actions resulted in the death of 3 young people, but they also had a sentence hearing where last month, where these high-vis jackets were protesting, where he had an appeal that had his sentence reduced.
Ooh.
This is why I'm not going to be surprised if people start taking it into their own hands, like vigilantism starts to become a major thing, which will be really bad.
No,
I'm not advertising.
Yeah,
but
no.
I don't want to do the think of the children thing here, but when 3 people are killed by a drunk driver and he gets a 17-year sentence and then you reduce it a little bit later on, you start undermining people's faith in the justice system's ability to actually mete out justice a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, trust me, they've been undermining that for years.
The death of 3 young boys, a 17-year sentence because you were a drink driver, is, I don't want to say fair. It's like, okay, that if it's manslaughter, if he admitted to guilt and everything like that, that's fine. Oh no, we're going to appeal it later and get it reduced down lower. You killed 3 people.
Exactly. It's this type of stuff that gives power to those that claim the rule of law is failing.
Right.
And it's like, you cannot, like, it.
Well, at the same time, in the middle of this demonstration where this outrage began and was probably centered around this a little bit, you also have the government that is not upholding its commitment to democracy. There was a democratic vote held. It went a specific way, and it's been, I think, 2.5 years now with no forward actions taken on that exact thing.
Right.
Which is the equivalent of an international treaty negotiation. 2.5 years to basically say, yeah, we don't want a treaty with them. Like,
actually, I do have some insight on this with the Brexit. So we're coming up very soon on a no-deal Brexit time, to where if anything has not been reached before a certain date, then it just immediately becomes a no deal and the EU leaves. I said the EU.
The UK.
Yeah, the UK leaves.
Yeah.
Right.
And once that happens, then they will be a-okay and not have to worry. So even if Theresa May literally has the negotiation skills of a retarded hamster, the UK itself is still securely safe. And actually, the EU has been starting to sweat bullets, because this means if they leave, they're leaving without paying the 38 billion, which will be amazing, and I can't wait to see how that's just gonna fucking hurt.
Cats
the
and
EU.
dogs living together. Mass
hysteria. I can't wait. Like I say, guys, we're entering the end game now. End game period coming up. It's gonna be fun to see what happens.
In December, Mr. Goddard and other members filmed themselves harassing pro-Remain MP Anna Soubry, and calling her a traitor.
Salisbury.
So it seems to be a consistent thread that they're upset. Why is this harass it? This is a member of parliament. This is a government official that are responsible for enacting the process of democracy. If they actually went too far, I don't want to sit here and watch. You see how many times they've linked here. They have a link for Tommy Robinson and a link for Donald Trump down below.
Well, I'm going to bet to the Tommy Robinson.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
A Tommy Robinson supporter who has spoken at the EDL founders rallies and attended numerous far-right marches. Mr. Goddard attempts to crowdfund his activities on PayPal.
I want to point out the Independent is doing that thing again, where they put people in the article that it's not actually talking about, to try to link in your own head.
But listen, I don't think you understand how guilty this man is. He is also a vocal supporter of Donald Trump. Hello.
Hello, he's literally Hitler.
Doesn't that already prove that everything he does is wrong?
Ugh.
He has previously called Islam a political ideology that advocates your death and claimed terror attacks are being covered up in Britain. This seems to be a common thread with... Yeah, well, when I say that's opinion and conjecture, that's what they want to voice. That's what they want to voice. In a country where freedom of speech existed, you wouldn't have that issue.
Yeah.
Hint, hint.
I would say that the political, connecting Islam as a political ideology that advocates for your death, that is a little bit more truthful than the terror attacks being covered up in Britain.
Well, hold on. I got a counter to that. So the whole thing about terror attacks, maybe that's a little bit, but I'm just gonna bring it up because I'm always gonna bring it up. Rotherham, the Rotherham rapes. You had children being raped and abused and used. You
forgot the other keywords: grooming gangs.
Yeah, grooming gangs.
A systematic. It wasn't just that it happened; it was systematic over the course of years.
Yeah, and the police just kept the lid on it. And these fuckers, no,
that's fine.
just angers me because it's like the police officers should just all have their badges taken away. Like everyone who was associating that should have just been on the chopping block. Not the literal chopping block, any legal people watching. The metaphorical.
So on the one hand, in France, what you have is a situation of that the government is basically making it unlivable for the people there. And within the UK, they're trying to connect the thread there on the high-vis jackets, but it's a slightly different situation in which the government is basically making it unable to change the government.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only common thread between them, is the government is failing the people in both instances. If they want to draw that parallel, then they're admitting to something they probably don't want to admit to.
No, I say please let them keep admitting it. I want to see these people thrown out. These people need to just be fired. They need to be gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
About time. Maybe, who knows? Maybe Britain will actually turn itself around and they'll finally purge these corrupt officials and things will actually start to get back to some common sense. I doubt it. I'm pretty sure it's still going to be 1984.
We need to start airdropping common sense on these people. The pamphlet from Thomas Paine. Was that Thomas Paine?
I say We shipped. Yes, it was. We just shipped some boats over with tea on them and say, "Get started."
Get started, guys.
It worked for us.
I see a perfectly good bay right over there.
Make it so the fish enjoy tea. The fish turn British.
And the obvious solution for the government is you're not reflecting the will of the people anymore, and you need to realize that. If you're a democratic system of government, then your goal should be to reflect the will of the people. Because the people are telling you something doesn't mean you're not. Now you're moving towards the technocracy.
Yep.
Where you know better than the people that elected you.
Yeah.
They always were a technocracy in some ways.
So
it could be argued. But that's a historical well that I don't want to dip into anymore. But
yeah. I love this. I'm assuming this is from Goddard. He listed political correctness, cultural Marxism, and forced adoptions as other values of the UK Yellow Vest movement. So
wait. That's for the Yellow Vest movement or
for the UK Yellow Vest movement?
Oh God, aren't they like a bunch of leftists? Yellow Vest guys?
No. No, not at all. It's a centrist movement, man.
Really, because I heard
if you think about the response, Mark, it's that's what I was trying to say a little bit earlier. In France, they've made conditions unlivable for their citizens.
All right.
So whether you're a socialist that wants to participate in democracy and get a socialist regime installed, or you're a conservative like USA Republican, or you're a libertarian or anything, all three of them are currently in the same position of they can't afford friggin' gas to put in their cars, so they can do their job on a day-to-day basis. So it's unlivable in the circumstances that they're in.
Yeah.
Now you're dealing with the situation in the UK that the government is now telling you that they know better than you.
And they're calling you a bunch of thugs and everything.
So in my personal opinion, even if you were directly in favor of some policies of the UK government, right now what you have is that you've lost, but now you realize that the will of the people is being denied. What if you have an agenda that you want to carry out through politics, that you want to advocate for, that you want to protest, that you want to go through the democratic process for? Is the government even going to listen to you, even though you were on their side?
Yeah, I guess
you have to. Everyone has to uphold democracy together, or revolt together.
We're all in this together. Just fucking holding hands with the communists.
If we know anything about Britain, though, they're going to use violent methods to suppress this, and then that's going to turn sympathy against them, because that's what happened in New York. But anyway.
I hope so.